welcome back to another episode of the Soundtrack of Self podcast. I'm your host, Paulina, and I am so grateful you've tuned in today. If you're right here, right now, and you tuned in, despite of the fact that I have not been present for the last 2 weeks, I really appreciate you, and I really just want to say a big thank you for patiently waiting and still tuning in. That really means a lot to me. So I also want to talk about why I haven't really been present. I kind of want to mention that a little bit. So, I can really cope very well when I have one or at max 2 areas of my life where things are going left or not very well. And I can cope very well if it's like 1 or 2 areas. I'm just like, okay, whatever. But if it's like all areas of life or pretty much all areas of life, it's more like, okay, hold up. Let me take a step back here because everything is going left right now. So this is what is going on. And years ago, I did do social media detoxes every now and then. And I haven't done that for a long time. And this time I was like, let me do a social media detox again. So I did that because, with me personally, I notice when there is a lot of things going on in my life, or maybe I guess when I feel very emotionally overwhelmed, I tend to really be on social media uncontrollably. So I scroll through TikTok and I'm constantly looking to fulfill this feeling that is missing, I guess. This feeling of security, this feeling of stability, this feeling of, I guess, sort of peace and happiness that is missing. So I guess I'm not ready to talk yet in detail about, what exactly is going on. But what I can say and what I want to share with you guys is that it's just pretty much all areas of my life other than friendships. But even in general, all areas of my life, including friendships, I just feel like I'm internally transitioning a little bit. And I can kind of explain it in a way of, I'm setting boundaries where I have never set boundaries before. And I kind of am dealing with the consequences of that now, which like consequences, I don't mean it in a bad way, but more so it's like I'm setting boundaries and it's like I'm dealing with the outcomes of that. Let me just put it like this. I'm dealing with the outcomes, So it's it's different, So yeah, it's needed to take a step back because I felt myself really going through social media all the time, and I spent hours on TikTok again and hours on Instagram Reels just going through it and finding videos to, like I said, fill this void that I had in that moment. And when I noticed that, I was like, okay, I have to take a step back here. Let me just be with myself and let me really process what's going on. What I've noticed was that I feel very overwhelmed, and there are certain things in my life right now that I didn't know had such a big impact on me. I thought they wouldn't, but they do. So, for example, I was in therapy the other day. And I was just talking about different stuff. And then I told my therapist a story about a situation that I had. And then I mentioned my family. And then after the family, I just instantly zoned out. I completely zoned out. And I was like, where was I? What did I want to say? I completely forgot my thought. Like, it was completely blank. I did not have any idea what I was about to say. And I was like, it took me like probably really 2 minutes to get back to the present moment and be like, okay, hold up. What the fuck was that? So I caught myself zoning out. I try to catch that thought. And then in the meantime of me trying to catch that thought, I got lost again. So yeah. And then with the help of my therapist, I got back to it. I started from the beginning. And then I had to mention my family again. And then again, I zoned out right after I mentioned my family. And then I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And then I told her, like, that's interesting. Every time I mention my family, I like zone out. I kind of like completely, I don't know. I lose my thought. Like I lose my thought completely. It goes like blank. Though I have experienced that before a lot, it kind of feels a little bit like dissociating, like you're not there anymore too. Sometimes, I mean, I had those moments before in difficult situations. I had those moments where I'm just like, I'm talking or somebody's talking to me and I'm just like, in the middle of that, I'm like zoning out and kind of like dissociating a little bit. And then I never really like took that serious because I was like, okay, that's normal, I guess. Because people be zoning out, But in that moment, what I really noticed was, first of all, I zoned out so bad. I haven't zoned out like this before at all. It was like completely, I was like staring there. I was sitting there staring and I was just like, then I caught myself. I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? What is going on right now? My therapist witnessed all of this, right? So I'm glad it happened in the therapy session, because this is where, I work with stuff like this. So, and then after the second time it happened and I noticed it was about my family, I was like, interesting. Like every time I mention my family, like I'm zoning out. And she was like, what could that tell you? And I was like, maybe it affects me more than I think it does. Maybe it's rooted deeper than I thought it was. Because when it comes to my family, I'm just always like, yeah, that's family. Like, what can I do? You know what I mean? Like, I don't really process things with my family. I don't really be mad at my family. I do get confused. I do get frustrated. I do get upset, but I don't really process the feeling afterwards, or just like, I guess, the aftermath of that. So I think it is really important to, when you're going through a situation, that you don't only deal with the emotions that you're feeling in that very moment, but also with everything that comes afterwards. Because I've noticed that now, especially with this situation, I was just like, okay, so I was dealing with the emotions in that very moment, right? But I didn't really notice that I haven't processed it. So I do be journaling, but I barely mention my family, like the situation with my family. So I barely be noticing or barely be writing about my family. And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting because I write, like when it comes to my relationship or my friendships or myself or, my vision of myself, I write so much. I write about emotions in that very moment. I write about the aftermath of the emotions. I write about how I feel a week later. But I don't do the same with the situations when it comes to my family. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to dive deeper into that. And so I have a homework. I have gave myself that homework to really journal consciously and intentionally about my family and about the situation with my family. We'll see how it's gonna go, but just journaling in general is a very good thing. So if you're trying to really get some thoughts and get some feelings out, I can recommend journaling. You can do journaling in many different ways. So what I personally do, typically I just journal in those days when I took a break from social media or just basically from everyone. Because I also told my friends, like, hey, don't wonder if I don't write you. I just need a few days off. And I went to the coffee shop and I was writing and I was journaling and I was writing. And then an hour later, I was still there writing. And then I got home and I was like, I still have some more to say. I think I have so much on my soul right now that I have to get out. So if you ever feel like you do have so much on your mind, on your soul that you need to share, but you don't really feel like it's anybody else's place right now to listen to it, you just want to have it for yourself, but you have to still, or you still want to get it out, then you can, journal. Like sometimes when I don't feel like writing, I also do video journaling or just voice memo journaling. That helps so much sometimes. It gets me really deep into my thoughts, and then sometimes it gets me to an issue I didn't even know was an issue. So it's kind of sort of like a therapy session, like a low-key self-therapeutic session. So yeah, I can also recommend that. So if you're going through anything similar like that, or if you ever go through anything similar like that, journaling, just writing it out by hand on the computer, as a video diary, as a voice memo, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So yeah, I have been really absent from social media. I haven't been posting in the last 2 weeks. I have not been in the studio. I have not been at work. And I really wanted to take this time off and be by myself. And in the last few days, I've noticed it has gotten a little better finally. So I still try to take walks every day because I just know, the physical activity is very important for me to get better. Even though I'm in a hole right now, I still try to stay disciplined as much as possible. I haven't done my workouts, but I did basically modify it into doing yoga or stretching just to, have some sort of, I guess, movement. So that's what I've been doing. And then those last few days, I have started to feel a lot better. I felt very at peace, especially I think it was Monday. Today's Wednesday. And on Monday, I really started to feel very at peace. I was on my couch and I was reading. And it was like quiet. And I was just like, that's a nice sound. I like that. And my emotions were quiet. I didn't feel any anxiety in me. I didn't feel this nervousness inside. So it was very peaceful. It was quiet and peaceful, and I really enjoyed that. And it still was like that yesterday, though I had a hard time falling asleep, because typically when I go through those phases, I have a hard time either sleeping well or falling asleep. So falling asleep has been a little bit of an issue for me, but that's not too bad. So yeah. And then, reading has been really, really good for me. And if you are going through anything similar, I could suggest you try different things out. Try different things out that, you read about or you hear people talk about. Like me, for example, like journaling, reading. Try it for yourself and then see how you like it, because you have to like it. Something else may work for you, So it's like reading may get you even more, anxiety. Maybe playing Call of Duty is something that could be an outlet for you and could bring you peace. I know it sounds weird, but it could definitely do that, because it did it with me one time too. I was super nervous and anxious, and I played Call of Duty for a few hours, and afterwards I was just like, you know what? Maybe I just really needed that. Maybe I just really needed, because when I play when I play Call of Duty, I'm just like, I be going in and I be cussing and I be doing all of that extra stuff. So typically I'm not really an angry person, but on Call of Duty, I be fucking shit up. Okay. So sometimes you need that. And this may just work for you in general, you know? So, if you don't know yet what can bring you that peace and that feeling that you need in the moment, then try out different things. You know, I feel like I'm still, also when it comes to the physical activity, I'm still trying different things out. I'm still trying to see what works for me, and what works for me today may not work for me tomorrow. You know, we as humans, we do change, we do evolve, and we like the comfort and we like the routines, but we also, the whole world changes. So we kind of change with it, consciously or unconsciously. So, you know, it's important to realize that if you had one thing that has worked for you for so long in order to bring you that mental stability or that peace and quiet, and you starting to notice like, hey, this doesn't even work anymore for me, then it could be that, you know, you need some changes. And that is totally okay, because like I said, we're all going through changes our whole life. So try new things out, and see what works for you. And I guess it's all about trying and experimenting and seeing what you can work with the best. And I always tell people, you know, do what is best for you with harming as little people as possible, because we're all like, it's almost impossible to not hurt anybody. Like, if you don't want to hurt anybody, you're probably a people pleaser, and that means you're hurting yourself. But in my opinion, it's not realistic to a whole life not hurt anybody. So you're going to harm people, you know, you're going to hurt people. Harm is probably a little bit too extreme, but hurt people. And so I think it's important to always understand that you have to do what's best for you with hurting as little people as possible. So don't I would say don't intentionally hurt people, of course. But if you're, let's say, I mean, the best example will probably be a breakup. You know, you feel like the relationship is not good for you anymore. You don't like the person that you are, and you feel like the breakup would be the best because the other person doesn't even want to work on the relationship. So you're just like, okay, you know, if the partner is not willing to work on the relationship, then it doesn't make sense staying in the relationship and keep hurting myself. So I'm going to break up with that person, but that person, you know, kind of still loves you, I guess, and then they're going to be hurt. But you're just doing what's best for you, even if they may not understand it. So I hope it was kind of clear, but what I mean is basically you cannot, especially in a situation of a breakup, it's probably going to be hurting the other person. But that doesn't mean that you are a bad person because you want to hurt them or anything like that. It's just you need to do what's best for you in that moment. And it's totally okay. And if the other person is willing to work, you know, with you and be there for you, then fine, that's perfect, you know. But if the other person is just like, oh, you know, like everything's perfect just how it is, then, you know, and you're not satisfied with where you are, and maybe it's time, and maybe it's time to end it or whatever. I watched a movie the other day, and which one was it? I forgot. I think it had Jennifer Aniston in it, where she was like nagging all the time, and her boyfriend I don't know who's the name of the actor, but she was nagging all the time and he was like, "What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?" And she didn't feel appreciated or whatever, and he didn't see the problem in the relationship. He just heard her nagging all the time. So she eventually broke things off with him. And then, I mean, of course, both were hurt, but she did the best that she could in the relationship. And then afterwards, she did what was best for her, because in a relationship, she did not get the best, as well as he did not get the best, because essentially it was hurting both parties, you know? So it's like, okay. But I'm kind of drifting off into relationship topic right now. But basically, this is what I mean. We're going through changes our entire life, and sometimes what works for you today may not work for you tomorrow. What works for you this year may not work for you next year, and be open to change. Be open to change. Be open for change. Be open for, I would say, elevation. Be open for upgrades, but also be open for doors to close, because that door may just be the wrong door for you, because there is a big gate waiting for you. I know it may sound a little weird, but let's say you want to walk through that door. You're just like, I really want to walk through the door because that door will get me where I need to be in life. And then the door, won't open for some reason. Then you keep looking, and eventually you'll find a huge golden gate and it's open for you. And then you'll be able to get where you want to be, even though you thought that door is going to get you where you want to be. Weird analogy, I know. This is just what popped up in my head, but just keep in mind, be open for change, be open for elevation. What works for you today may not work for you tomorrow, and what may not work for you today may work for you tomorrow. So that's all I have to say. So now you guys know a little bit of, how I've been feeling and what I've been going through. I think the toughest thing really is the family situation right now. One day I think I will be able to speak more in detail about it. For right now, that's okay for me to share a little bit, but yeah, I am definitely doing things to cope with everything. I'm trying to do it in the healthiest way possible, but also in a way that's kind of, I guess really doing good to my soul, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to really hang out with people that make me laugh. I have a few friends. I love their humor. I love hanging out with them because they're just funny, But I don't want to overextend my social battery right now. So I always go for a coffee or something. So never for like a whole day. Not at the moment. But when time is there again. But that's the cool thing. Like, I have really amazing friends, and I have friends that really love me and understand. And it's just really amazing having people in your life that have this understanding, and they don't blame you, but it's more like, because it's a take and give without kind of keeping track of it. Is like, I'm there for them when they need me, and they're there for me when I need them. And so it's a wonderful thing, It's really precious. I'm about to get sentimental. Thank you so much for tuning in, even though I have not been present in the last 2 weeks. But I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I'll see you next time.